My name is Ava Reed, and I'm 31. If you asked me last spring what my love language was, I'd have said acts of service, watching someone roll up their sleeves for you. I didn't know then that you can dress up a cage as a favor and still call it love. I bought my modest 3 bedroom 5 years ago, the kind of place that has dependable bones and embarrassing finishes. The kitchen was time capsuled in 1997. Honey oak cabinets, laminate counters that had seen too many spaghetti nights. The primary bath wore pink tile, like a blush it couldn't wash off. The basement was an idea more than a space. Concrete, cobwebs, and potential. I had a plan. Slow upgrades, one paycheck at a time. My boyfriend, Evan Parker, 29, called it the patient version of a miracle. We kept Pinterest boards, made little jars labeled counters, tile, someday. Then came the barbecue. My family does this annual thing at my parents' place. Paper plates, smoke in the trees, my dad trying to pretend the grill is more complicated than it is. Monica Hale, 33, my older sister, arrived late with a cooler and a pitch. Monica is the entrepreneurial type. She collects LLCs the way other people collect cookbooks. Lately, she'd been talking about a rebrand, Hale Home Renovations, LLC. A friend of a friend had shown her how to run design software. She'd taken some online courses. She spoke the language of before and after. Av, listen, she said, beer bottle in one hand, tablet in the other, angling the screen so the late light would bless her mock-ups. I need portfolio pieces, real homes, real testimonials. Let me do your kitchen and primary bath. Labor's my gift. You just cover materials, and you let me photograph everything for my site. I laugh the way you do when something beautiful falls into your lap and you don't quite believe in gravity. You're serious? Completely, she said, eyes bright. Family helps family. You'd be helping me launch, and you'd get the upgrades you've been manifesting. Evan shifted closer, resting his forearms on the picnic table. What does materials mean exactly? He asked, voice gentle but steady. Just cabinets and tile? Or fixtures? Appliances? Monica waved a dismissive little circle. We'll keep it simple. You pick the look, I'll source. We'll reconcile receipts at the end so you're not nickel and dimed every week. Trust me, it's cleaner. Cleaner, I repeated, as if saying it out loud pressed the word into something true. My mother watched us, smiling the kind of smile that wants a good ending. My father nodded, like the grill had just reached the perfect temperature for agreement. Later that night, Evan sat cross-legged at the foot of our bed, the fan clicking, the house breathing. Let's just write down the basics, he said. Scope, labor-free, materials at cost, clear, friendly. Doesn't have to be a contract. Just something you both sign so no one misremembers. It's Monica, I said, hearing my own voice soften. She taught me to drive and paid for my first tire blowout. We don't need paperwork for love. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, a little tell he does when he's trying not to push. Okay, just be clear about expectations. I promised I would, then I didn't. Work began the first Monday in June. Monica showed up at 8 a.m. with 2 guys I didn't know, Brandon and Scott, plus clipboards and a confidence that hummed. She walked the kitchen and bath with a tape measure, drew blocks and lines on her tablet, spoke in verbs, demo, install, grout. 6 weeks, she said, barring catastrophe. Demo was a revelation. By Wednesday, the old cabinets were gone, stacked like retired soldiers in the driveway. The pink tile came up in sharp little sighs. Dust floated through the sun like confetti for a party we hadn't named yet. Evan and I ate takeout on our bedroom floor and toasted with warm soda. To miracles, patient and otherwise, he said. The first 2 weeks felt like a montage, quick cuts of progress. Monica texted me inspiration photos. Clean shaker fronts, quartz with a whisper of veining, matte black poles. Trust me, she'd write. This will sing. I saved everything. I let myself believe we were both getting exactly what we wanted. My home updated, her business born, brave. Then the tempo changed. Brandon and Scott vanished after week 3. Monica started showing up after noon, hair undone, a sheen of stress on her face that didn't invite questions. Supply chain's a mess, she said, flipping through her tablet with a sigh. Those cabinets we earmarked, back-ordered, the tile, discontinued. I'm pivoting. Okay, I said, because the kitchen looked like a crossword puzzle I couldn't solve, and the bathroom was a mouth half torn of teeth. And what else do you say to the person holding your house in her hands? By week 6, there was primer on walls, but the hollowness of promise in the corners. I texted Monica, timeline check. She sent back a picture of a truck bed full of boxes. Moving, forward. No dates, no receipts. Evan started to stack the takeout containers like a skyline. Babe, I know you trust her, he said one night, softer than the lamplight. But the goalposts are moving and I don't see the field. I kissed his shoulder. She's trying, I said. She's my sister. He nodded, but there was worry in it. Week 8, Hope limped back in. Cabinets arrived, beautiful, though not quite the profile I remembered. The rails a hair narrower, the finish a touch glossier. I told myself design is jazz, variations. Countertops went on, smooth as a secret. In the bath, a new vanity stood where pink tile used to mock us. The tub surround gleamed like it had forgiven the past. We're basically done, Monica announced that Friday, dusting her hands as if she'd built the horizon. Touch-up paint, grout, polish. Next week we're golden. Next. Thank God, Evan whispered, not meaning to be heard. I pulled out my checkbook, something ceremonial about it. So, materials. Give me the number and I'll write it. Monica smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Let me compile it so it's clean. You'll have a proper invoice in a few days. The house felt livable again, and that dull relief made me careless. I didn't ask for receipts. I didn't ask for SKUs. I didn't ask. A few days became 10. My texts, hey, invoice, got the kind of replies busy people send when they're juggling chainsaws. In the field. Swamped. Soon. I called once, twice. Voicemail. I drove by her apartment, then told myself I was being dramatic. On a Tuesday in early September, a certified letter arrived. I opened it on the front steps in mismatched pajamas, the sun buttering everything like a joke. Hail Home Renovations, LLC. Invoice, Hanaja HR, 2024-003. Client, Ava Reed. The line items marched in neat rows 3 pages long. Kitchen cabinets, $8,500, countertops, $4,200 appliances, $3,800, bathroom vanity, $1,200, tile, $2,100, fixtures, $1,800, paint, $600, and on. At the bottom, 2 lines weighted like teeth. Materials total, $28,750, labor, 240 hours at $85 char. $20, $400 total. Due, $49,150. Somewhere a dog barked, ordinary and endless. My hand shook. I read the labor line 3 times, as if repetition would charm it back into the air it rode in on. I called. Voicemail. I called again. On the 3rd try, Monica answered, her voice modulated to a business frequency. Hey, Avi. What is this invoice? My own voice sounded far away, like it had to travel through drywall. You said labor was free. The basic labor, she said, the way you say the word you've been rehearsing. The project expanded substantially beyond the initial discussion. Premium materials were chosen. Designer fixtures. I logged over 240 hours. I can't. You told me at the barbecue, I said, tipping into the memory like it might crack and let me through. I said I'd gift the basics. What this became, that's different. A pause. Any other contractor would have charged you 60 grand easy. I gave you a family rate. Family rate. The phrase slipped between my ribs. I don't have $50,000, I said. I budgeted 5, maybe, for materials at cost. That's what we agreed. Send me receipts, actual receipts, and I'll pay what's real. Her voice cooled, iron under silk. I'm a licensed contractor running a legitimate business, Ava. I performed work. You owe for that work. If you won't pay, I'll protect my business interests. Are you threatening to sue me? I hope it doesn't come to that, but I won't be taken advantage of. She hung up. The dial tone felt like the house exhaling without me. Evan found me on the steps, letter trembling in my hands. He read it once, then again, jaw set. We'll deal with this, he said, 1 page at a time. I stared at my pretty kitchen through the open door. The light caught the counters, traced the cabinet rails I hadn't chosen. Somewhere underneath the shine, I felt it, a hairline crack running the length of us, invisible to guests, audible to anyone who listened closely. I didn't know the word for what would come next. Not yet. But somewhere in Monica's sentence, protect my business interests, another word waited, quiet and patient, a key in a pocket, lean. Let's get everything in writing, Evan said, finally saying the very thing I had kept postponing. Yes, I answered, but the word arrived late, like a train to a station that had already emptied. Evan took photos of every page of the invoice and saved them into a folder labeled HHR Dispute. He's like that, organized even when the floor is shifting. I brewed coffee I didn't drink and stared at the cabinets, willing them to confess what they cost. First move, he asked. Ask for receipts again, in writing. I sent a calm, lawyerly text I copied from a template I found online. Please provide itemized receipts for all materials, including vendor names and SKUs, and confirm in writing that labor was originally offered at no charge, as discussed on date. I wanted the words to sound like a wall, not a plea. Read, no reply. The next morning, a new letter arrived by email, this one from Chen and Associates. The subject line had the tone of a rulebook. Demand for payment. Hale Home Renovations, LLC. It was clinical, like a diagnosis. Dear Ms. Reed, our firm represents Hale Home Renovations, LLC, regarding unpaid invoices for services rendered at your residence. Despite repeated attempts to collect payment, you have failed to remit the amount owed of $49,150. If payment is not received within 10 business days, our client will pursue all available legal remedies. I read it 3 times and felt my body get very still, like a deer listening for the thing that decides the rest of the day. Evan touched my shoulder. We need counsel. The consultation with Robert Patterson cost $300 and a piece of my naivete. He had a desk that looked like a closing argument, neat stacks, tight clips, a calendar block that respected fear but didn't kneel to it. He listened, then laced his fingers. Do you have anything in writing about the labor being free? He asked. No, it was my sister, at a family barbecue. The words sounded flimsy as napkins. Texts, emails, any contemporaneous notes? I shook my head. My boyfriend was there, my parents, everyone heard it. Witnesses help. Family witnesses help less, he said, not unkindly. And she's claiming scope expansion. Even if a free labor promise existed, she'll argue upgrades and premium selections converted that promise into a paid structure. Verbal contracts are valid, but courts are allergic to memories. He paused, then added, most cases like this settle. Offer materials at cost. Ask for receipts. Keep emotion out of the paperwork. Emotion? It already had a key to my house. We drafted a letter disputing the labor charge, demanding documentation, and proposing a compromise. Provide actual receipts. We will reimburse materials at cost within 5 business days. It read like a handshake. It felt like a bruise. That night, as I was cleaning countertop crumbs that belonged to no one, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. I heard about the invoice. Monica's doing that thing again. Who is this? I typed. Unknown. It's Leah. We met once, through Evan. Don't panic. I'm not here to stir anything. Just be careful with her. Leah. Evan's ex-girlfriend. The one who lived in Seattle now. The one whose polite shadow had never crossed our threshold. How did you hear? I wrote, heart spiking with a cocktail I didn't order, salt and jealousy and curiosity. Leah. Monica DM'd me last month asking if I wanted Reno quotes for my condo. Said she partners with clients and sometimes keeps a stake until invoice is clear. It felt off. I didn't bite. Then a mutual friend posted your new kitchen on Insta and tagged her business. I put 2 and 2 together. I'm sorry, Ava. If you want, I can forward the messages. I stared at the screen. Keeps a stake. The phrase moved like cold water down my back. Please forward, I typed, and thank you. Evan came into the kitchen, towel over his shoulder. I told him. He went very still, then nodded. This isn't about Leah. It's a data point. We use data. Leah's screenshots landed in my inbox like little testimonies. Monica's language to her was glossy, but predatory in the seams. I sometimes defer invoices in exchange for a recorded interest. Totally standard. Portfolio projects come with a different payment structure. More upside for me. Big win for you. Upside. Stake. Structure. Words that sounded like scaffolding but felt like a trap. Robert included the screenshots in a second letter, firmer this time. He requested proof of licensure for projects exceeding $10,000, copies of permits pulled, and lien waivers from suppliers. He put dates in bold. He carbon copied fate. Chen and Associates answered with something colder. If your client will not remit payment, our client will file a mechanic's lien forthwith. I didn't need to Google forthwith. The heir already knew. I spent the next day collecting our own proof. Texts where Monica told me, "Don't worry about it till the end," and "Labor's my gift, Av. Let me build my book." Photos of the barbecue table. A voice memo I didn't realize I had. A fragment of laughter and Monica saying, "Family helps family." Not contractual, but real. Evan printed everything and slid it into a binder with tabs so clean they could cut you. "We're not helpless," he said. But helplessness isn't a fact. It's a weather system, and mine was moving in. The certified letter from the county recorder's office landed a week later. The seal looked ceremonial. The contents felt like a verdict. Notice of Mechanics Lien Filed Claimant. Hale Home Renovations, LLC Property. My address. Amount, $49,150. And if you've never held a lien notice, imagine a stranger making a spare key to your life and waving it from the curb. I called Robert. He lowered his voice the way doctors do when they ferry you across a sentence. "She has 180 days to enforce it. It clouds your title. You can't refinance or sell cleanly until it's released or adjudicated. We'll challenge it. But step one is document, document, document." The clouds on paper became a storm in my basement by Friday. I pulled into the driveway after a grocery run and saw Monica's truck backed up to the garage, tailgate down, boxes stacked like a dare. She was carrying a plastic tote toward my house with the casual strength of someone who's already decided where the furniture goes. "What are you doing?" I asked, the grocery bag handles cutting into my fingers. "Moving in," she said, breath even. She gestured toward the house with a chin lift I used to mistake for charm. "I have nearly 50 grand invested here. I'm securing my equity. I'll be in the basement. I won't get in your way." "Your what?" "My equity." She said it like an estate planner. "Until the debt resolves, I have an interest in the property. This is prudent." "Prudent is texting before you trespass," I said, voice climbing a ladder it didn't want to be on. "Get out." She walked past me, the tote bumping her hip like a friend. "Call the cops if you want," she said. "I'll show them the lien. It's a civil matter." Evan arrived to find me on the porch with my phone and my pulse. The police came 20 minutes later and divided us like a story with two narrators. Officer Thomas glanced at the lien paperwork, then at me with the weary compassion of a man who has learned the limits of his badge. "Ma'am, this is a civil dispute. The lien complicates things. We can't remove her right now. You'll need to handle this in court." Monica smiled like she'd installed the law herself. She set up a cot, a mini fridge, a thrift store TV. The basement took on the smell of possession, cardboard and audacity. She surfed my kitchen in the mornings, scrambled eggs in my pan, hummed with a tenderness so bright it felt like a dare. "How's work, Evan?" she'd ask. And he'd not answer, setting his coffee down like it might break if he looked at her. My parents came that Sunday under the banner of talk. Dad, Thomas Reed, sat stiff on the couch, hands steepled. Mom, Patricia, stood by the window as if she could open it and let this all out. "Monica," Dad said, voice heavy. "Son." He stopped himself, corrected. "Daughter, what are you doing?" "I'm protecting a legitimate claim, Dad." She glanced at me. "Ava's turned this into a legal problem. I'm responding in kind." "You told her labor was your gift," Mom said, eyes wet. "We were there." "I said I'd gift the basics. She wanted premium." Monica leaned back, unruffled. "I won't be bullied into running a charity." "You moved into her house," I said, the words tinny and small. "Who's bullying whom?" Monica's smile sharpened. "There are options. If you can't pay now, we can convert part of what you owe into equity. Say 30% ownership recorded properly. Everybody wins." The room clicked into silence. I could hear the refrigerator hum and the faint metallic complaint of the air vent. "You want part of my home," I said, just to see how it landed in the air between us. She shrugged lightly. "It's math." Mom stood abruptly. "Thomas," she whispered, "I can't listen to this." At the door, she turned to Monica with a face I'd only seen once before, at a funeral. "I don't recognize you." After they left, the house settled around us with the weight of new rules. Monica kept to the basement mostly. I kept to the bedroom, a self-imposed exile from my own home. Evan started sleeping with his phone on the nightstand, notes app open. Every sound in the house became a question. Her footsteps, the sink running, the basement door sighing closed. I started taking pictures of everything, timestamps, dates, a documentary of disbelief. At 2:14 a.m. one night, my phone lit up with a message from Leah. If she's filed a lien without proper licensure, that's leverage. In my state, that's illegal for projects over 10K. Your state might be similar. Check the board. There was no emoji, no softness, just a bridge across a river I'd been staring at. I got out of bed and opened my laptop on the floor. The State Contractor Licensing Board website had a search portal clean enough to hurt. I typed Hail Home Renovations. A status bar spun like a coin. Results populated. Application pending. Requirements incomplete. I scrolled. For projects exceeding $10,000, the state required a valid license. The penalty for unlicensed contracting read like an instruction manual for leverage. Fines, suspension, criminal referral in some cases. There was a section on mechanics' liens filed by unlicensed contractors. The air changed in my lungs. I pulled up vendor websites. I called the cabinet manufacturer, whose labels were still in the garage. Noticed the model number. Cross-checked pricing. $300 retail, not $8,500. The countertop SKU? $1,800 retail, not $4,200. Numbers started to stand up and walk around, introducing themselves. I saved everything. I wrote down names, dates, quotes, the color of the customer service rep's nail polish. It all felt important. Evan sat up, hair smashed to one side. You okay? No, I said, but there was a thread of something in it. Purpose, maybe. I think I just found our door. In the morning, Robert read my email with the attachments and called, voice brighter than any of our recent conversations. This changes things considerably, he said. Unlicensed for a project over 10 grand, inflated materials. We'll move for a temporary restraining order based on harassment and emotional distress. Get her out of the house. Then we'll file complaints with the board and consumer protection, and we'll challenge the lien's validity. How long will that... I stopped myself. Not that question. Not anymore. Tell me what to do next. Document your distress. If you're seeing a therapist, get a letter. Judges like paper. By noon, I had an appointment. By evening, I had a letter. By the end of the week, a deputy sheriff knocked on my door, asked for Monica, and served her papers that sounded like a boundary spoken by the state. Her eyes flashed with something I couldn't name. Fear, fury, the first hairline crack in her certainty. This is ridiculous, she said, stuffing clothes into a duffel. You won't win. It's not about winning, I said, surprised to find it was true. It's about getting my home back. The basement exhaled after she left. The silence was heavy and alive, like soil. Evan changed the locks. I turned off the lights and stood in the kitchen with my hand on the cool counter. For the first time in weeks, I could hear my own thoughts. We were not safe yet. A lien is a line someone draws across your life and dares you to step over. But the house was ours for the night, and the night was long, and I had names, dates, screenshots, SQs, statutes. I opened a blank document and typed a title that felt like both a letter and a prayer. Ava Reed v. The Way Things Were. The Monday hearing for the temporary restraining order was held in a courtroom that smelled faintly of lemon polish and endings. The judge, Margaret Thompson, read everything in silence for what felt like hours. She asked 2 questions. Ms. Reed, has your sister made any threats? No, Your Honor, only implications. And has she refused to leave despite being asked? Yes, multiple times. The police said it was a civil matter. Judge Thompson looked over her glasses. It was, until she moved in. Now it's harassment. TRO granted. The gavel dropped softly, but it still sounded like thunder in my ribs. By Friday, the sheriff returned. Same knock, different energy. Monica was given 10 minutes to collect her things. She packed without looking at me, tossing clothes into the same duffel she'd arrived with, muttering under her breath. This is ridiculous, she said, voice sharp as wire. You're blowing everything out of proportion. You filed a lien, I said quietly. You moved into my house. I worked on your house, she snapped. I improved it. And you still get to live here like I didn't lift a finger? Unreal. Her eyes flicked to Evan, who stood in the hallway, arms folded. She's always had you wrapped around her, hasn't she? She said, a smirk twisting her face. Leave him out of this, I said, steady this time. She grabbed her last box, miscellaneous tools, and brushed past the sheriff. Enjoy your win, she said, bitterness clinging to each syllable. You'll regret it. The door closed. Silence. No footsteps, no humming, no midnight creaks from the basement. Just the house, breathing again. Evan exhaled first. She's gone, he said. Finally. But gone didn't mean finished. We changed the locks, installed a camera over the garage, and replaced the basement door entirely. I started sleeping through the night again, sort of. Every bump outside still sent a tremor through me. Trauma doesn't exit when the intruder does. It lingers, rearranging the furniture in your mind. The next morning, I took Robert's advice and filed everything. Complaint with the Contractor Licensing Board for unlicensed operation. Complaint with the State Consumer Protection Division for fraudulent invoicing. Fraud and emotional distress lawsuit drafted, ready to file. I attached screenshots, photos, emails, Leah's forwarded messages, the licensing search result that screamed application pending. Robert reviewed the packet and gave a rare, tight smile. You did your homework, Ava. This isn't just leverage. This is proof. He explained how Monica's lien could be invalidated, since unlicensed contractors in our state can't legally file one for projects over $10,000. She may have thought she was being clever, he said, but she's just built a paper trail to her own undoing. For the first time in months, I laughed. Short, brittle, but real. 2 weeks later, I received an envelope stamped Notice of Hearing, case number 24 CV 1973. Monica had filed a motion to enforce the lien. It was laughable, but still terrifying. The courtroom was different this time. Larger, colder. Monica arrived in a sleek navy suit, hair polished, jaw tight. Her lawyer, Patricia Chen, flanked her like a bodyguard. I caught Monica's eyes once across the aisle. There was no sister in that look, only strategy. Judge Thompson presided again. Counselor, she said, addressing Chen, you're asserting your client has a right to enforce a mechanic's lien on her sister's home for $49,150. Yes, Your Honor, Chen replied. Work was performed, materials installed, and the property owner benefited. Payment was not remitted. Robert stood, calm, deliberate. Your Honor, opposing counsel's client performed unlicensed contracting work exceeding $10,000, an act prohibited under State Statute 89.120. Furthermore, all invoices submitted contain material misrepresentations of cost. We move to dismiss the lien as fraudulent and unenforceable. Judge Thompson's brow arched. Ms. Chen, is your client licensed? Chen hesitated. Her application is pending. Pending is not licensed, the judge said, voice sharp. You're aware that filing a lien under false pretenses constitutes fraud, correct? Chen swallowed. We were under the impression. Then your impression was wrong. Judge Thompson turned to Monica. Ms. Hale, you've abused this process and weaponized a family relationship for personal gain. I am ordering the lien expunged from the property title effective immediately. Further, any attempt to refile or retaliate will result in contempt. Her gavel came down. Once. Final. Monica's face didn't move, but her knuckles whitened around the table edge. Robert packed our papers quietly, whispering, That's checkmate. I sat still for a moment, feeling the tremor of relief crawl through me like warmth after frostbite. That night, Evan cooked dinner for the first time in weeks. Simple pasta, red wine, quiet laughter that sounded like home relearning its voice. The kitchen, the one that had started this mess, glowed under the pendant lights. You okay? He asked, touching my wrist. Getting there, I said. She can't touch the house anymore. Or you. I nodded. But the damage, I looked around. It's still in the air, you know? He squeezed my hand. We'll clear it, one memory at a time. I wanted to believe him. But later that week, a letter arrived, again from Chen and Associates. This time, it was a settlement offer. Ms. Hale is willing to release all claims and liens in exchange for the withdrawal of the lawsuit and administrative complaints. No further contact, no admissions of wrongdoing. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I picked up the pen and wrote back through Robert's office. My client is willing to settle only under the following terms. Full release of lien. Written acknowledgement of no valid debt. Payment of $5,000 toward legal fees. The administrative complaints remain active. Robert faxed it. Silence followed. 2 days. Then a week. Then another call. She accepted, Robert said. voice unreadable. She's cornered. The licensing board suspended her pending investigation. Without a license, she can't operate or bid. This was her only out. I didn't cheer. I didn't even smile. Just exhaled like someone who had been holding their breath for a whole season. When Monica arrived at the courthouse to sign the settlement, she wore the same navy suit. No eye contact, no apology, just paperwork. Her lawyer pushed the papers across the table. Robert reviewed, nodded. I signed first, then Monica. For a brief, strange moment, her eyes lifted. You really think you won? She asked quietly. No, I said. I think I survived. She blinked, then left without another word. The clerk stamped the documents, finalized. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Leaves scraped the courthouse steps. Evan waited by the car, hands in his pockets. That small, relieved half-smile that always made me feel like the world hadn't broken completely. It's over, I said. He nodded. Then let's go home. I looked at him, then at the stretch of sky above the courthouse. Gray, unremarkable, honest. Home, I echoed. Yeah, let's go home. But I knew something deeper, quieter. Endings don't always roar. Sometimes they sigh. And in that sigh, you can finally breathe. The settlement didn't make the silence feel cleaner. It just made it official. For the first week, I still jumped when the doorbell rang, still checked the locks twice before bed. It's strange how fear lingers after the threat is gone. It doesn't know when to clock out. Evan tried to coax normalcy back in small, stubborn ways. Music in the mornings, dinner at the table instead of in bed, coffee in matching mugs. The house felt lighter, but the air carried echoes. I'd catch a faint scent of sawdust and freeze, half expecting footsteps from the basement. Then one night, sitting in our newly claimed living room, Evan handed me his laptop. Read this. It was an article from a local business blog. Contractor license suspended, home renovation company under investigation for fraudulent practices. Right there in black text, Hale Home Renovations, LLC, operated by Monica Hale, fined $15,000 and barred from license renewal for 5 years. My name wasn't mentioned, but I didn't need it to be. The entire story was coded in our history. She can't hurt you anymore, Evan said, watching me read. But I didn't feel triumphant, just hollow. The truth is, when family falls apart, justice doesn't feel like victory. It feels like an autopsy. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the State Consumer Protection Division. The investigator, Ms. Carver, wanted a formal statement. Her voice was efficient but kind. You did the right thing reporting this, Ms. Reed. She's not the first unlicensed contractor we've seen file fraudulent liens, but she might be the boldest. She even listed your address as a project showcase on her business website. She what? I sat up straight. Yes, Carver said. We've already had it removed, but if you see her use any photos from your home for marketing, screenshot them immediately. The image of Monica's website came back to me. Those crisp before and after shots of my kitchen, my bathroom, my home, her portfolio. She'd even captioned one, a total transformation achieved through creative partnership and trust. Trust, the word curdled in my mouth. My parents called a few nights after that article went live. Dad's voice was rough, like he'd been practicing the call all day. Ava, we saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, Dad, just tired. Mom's voice joined in quietly. We didn't know how bad it really was. Your father and I thought it was just a misunderstanding. It was never just that, I said, trying to keep the edge out of my tone. I know, she whispered. We talked to her after court. She wouldn't listen. She said you humiliated her, that you ruined her career. She ruined her own career, I said, but it came out softer than I meant it to. I just stopped her from ruining my life. Mom sighed, a sound that cracked around the edges. She's still your sister. I know, I said again, but this time it felt like both an answer and a goodbye. By November, the legal dust had settled. The lien was erased from my title, the court order finalized, the no-contact order in place. The only trace of Monica was a stack of manila folders in our hallway closet labeled HHR case. Evan wanted to burn them. I wanted to keep them, proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. We compromised, sealed the box, labeled it closed. Some nights, though, I'd catch myself rereading my own notes. Not out of obsession, out of disbelief that all of it had really happened. The receipts, the invoices, the way she'd looked me in the eye and said, it's math. Families shouldn't talk about equity and ownership in the same breath as love, but sometimes they do. And when they do, you learn who you are without the safety net. Thanksgiving came. My parents hosted, as always. They set 2 tables this year, one for the family, one for absence. Monica wasn't there, but her name hovered in every pause. Mom asked if I'd like to say grace. I hesitated, then nodded. Thank you, I began, voice steady, for the food, for the roof, and for the lessons that came at a cost. Dad looked down at his plate. Mom's lips trembled, but she whispered, Amen. After dinner, as people drifted toward pie and football, Mom hugged me in the kitchen. Your house looks beautiful in those photos, she said, meaning the ones I had taken. Our own, not Monica's. Different somehow, lighter. It's finally ours, I said, every inch of it. A few weeks later, I was standing in that same kitchen when I noticed something new, sunlight hitting the quartz counters just right, making the faint veining glow gold. I hadn't seen it before, not during the chaos, not even after the settlement. It was like the house had been waiting for me to look at it with both eyes open. Evan came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. What's on your mind? Everything we went through for this view, I said. Every dollar, every bruise. He smiled into my shoulder. Worth it? I looked at our reflection in the glossy cabinet door. Us, small but steady. Completely. That night I wrote in my journal, justice doesn't rebuild trust, it rebuilds ground. And sometimes standing on solid ground again is enough. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and let the quiet hold me. The house didn't feel haunted anymore, just alive. Winter came early that year. Gray mornings, pale light, frost etched across the window panes like a warning and a blessing. For the first time in months, the house didn't echo when I moved through it. The air had softened. The walls no longer listened for her footsteps. Evan and I were careful with money. Every receipt logged, every account double-checked. We started saving again, quietly rebuilding the fund we'd drained on lawyers and therapy. The number grew slowly, like a scar closing from the inside. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and hear the faint hum of the fridge, the clock ticking in the hall, the ordinary symphony of peace. It was strange how silence could feel so full after months of chaos. One cold Friday morning, Robert called. His tone had that restrained satisfaction lawyers save for clients who've been through hell. Good news, he said. The board finalized their sanctions. Monica's barred from applying for any contracting license for 5 years, and they're adding her company to the Consumer Fraud Alert list. I didn't say anything at first. The words settled over me like snow, quiet, inevitable, beautiful in their stillness. She can't do this to anyone else, I said finally. That's right, he said. It's over. But I knew over was a matter of paperwork. The emotional part, the bruise, would take longer to fade. 2 months later, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, the kind of small that comes from carrying too many invisible things. She hesitated in front of the freezer aisle before saying, Your sister moved out of her apartment. No one knows where to. I nodded, unsure what to feel. I hope she's okay, I said, and meant it more than I expected to. Mom's eyes softened with tears. She said you made her look like a criminal. I sighed. She did that herself. I just stopped pretending not to see it. Mom touched my arm. You were right. I just wish being right didn't hurt so much. At home that night, Evan poured 2 glasses of wine and turned on the old string lights in the kitchen. The soft bulbs made the quartz shimmer again, the same shimmer I'd first noticed weeks ago, like the house itself was healing. We ate quietly, our knees brushing under the table, the way couples do when they've fought through something unthinkable and survived it together. Do you ever miss her? He asked after a while. I miss who she was, I said. The sister who made me birthday cards out of construction paper, not the woman who filed liens. He nodded. That's fair. We clinked glasses, a small toast to the strange peace that comes when the storm finally stops asking to be heard. The following spring, I started a journal series online, Lessons from the Lien. It wasn't dramatic, just honest. How to check licenses, how to document agreements, how to say no, even when the person asking is family. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but they did. Hundreds of people messaged saying they'd gone through something similar. Sibling betrayals, contractor scams, lines between love and business blurring until they snapped. It didn't make what happened okay, but it made it useful. One evening, as golden hour poured through the kitchen windows, I stood in the doorway and really looked at everything. The smooth countertop, the cabinets she installed, the the faint brush strokes of paint where Evan and I had touched up the walls ourselves. The kitchen wasn't perfect. The finish on one drawer was slightly uneven. The grout line in the bathroom still bugged me if I looked too close. But they were ours. Every imperfection was a receipt for survival. Evan came up behind me, looping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking?" he murmured. "That every home keeps a record of who loved it and who tried to own it," I said softly, "and that sometimes the same person can be both." He rested his chin on my shoulder. "We made it through, Ava. You did." I smiled. "No, we did." Outside, the wind carried the first warm promise of spring through the open window. Inside, the house stood quietly, finally, undeniably, mine. I ran my hand across the countertop, tracing the faint veining of the quartz, and whispered to no one in particular, "This is what freedom feels like." The kitchen didn't answer, but the light did, stretching long and golden across the room, like the world itself was nodding in agreement.